Welcome back to Over the Edge podcast. This week, I know I say every week I have a special guest, but this week I have an extra special guest. I've known her for a while, and if you're watching the video of this, I am wearing my favorite piece of hers, and we're going to talk about all of that. But first, let me introduce my guest this week. Marrin Costello is an American businesswoman, designer, and brand architect. Her entrepreneurial journey began at age 10 after falling in love with the art of jewelry making. And just 2 decades later, Marrin has built a luxury lifestyle brand that has been featured in Vogue, Huffington Post, and Who What Wear, among many others, and whose collection can be found in over 400 retailers nationwide. The byproduct of creating a successful company and internationally recognized business, having the experience, knowledge, and foundation to support other companies, brands, and entrepreneurs alike in finding their own respective success. Marrin harmoniously bridges creativity and finance in helping build beautiful, sustainable, and profitable companies with purpose. Now a consultant to companies worldwide, Marrin has been named a brand architect, offering perspective, facilitating clarity, and delivering results to clients across all fields of expertise. The Marrin Costello approach is holistic in both concept and practice, building both consistency and momentum for clients to withstand the varying seasons of business, entrepreneurship, and life. And what's more, Marrin also features other entrepreneurial stories through intentional conversations with impactful people on her weekly podcast and radio show titled Marrin Costello Radio. While the Marrin Costello headquarters and jewelry flagship store are now based in Tampa, Florida, Marrin travels the globe, connecting with the MC community, building lasting relationships with clients, and collaborating with other like-minded thought leaders and brands. All things Marrin Costello are founded on 3 pillars: beauty, community, and excellence. Marrin, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you. I feel like we need to have a little applause track. Yay.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a treat. And I know that we're here and we're going to love on all of your listeners, but really this is, for me, this is about spending time with you because, like Paige said, we have been friends for well over a decade.
Can you believe that? When you do the math,
right?
It's just like, how does time go so fast?
So I mark time by my hair colors.
Oh, I love it. I love
and I
it.
feel like you have known me through pink hair, ombre hair, platinum. You were there for all the phases of Ice Queen. I mean, I feel like I've lived my life through hair colors with you on camera.
Isn't that so
Truly.
funny? And what my first shoot, when I first moved into commercial work, was almost on accident because at the time, it was with you. At the time, I had a website called Call Me Bossy. It was like a blog where I just featured female entrepreneurs. And we were doing a feature on you and I said, send me over a headshot. And you were like, oh, I don't really have one. And I was like, okay, well, we got to take care of this. And I was doing weddings at the time, but I came over and we were just going to do a 20-minute shoot that turned into a 3-hour shoot. And oh my gosh, it was so much fun. And the photos afterward were so stunning. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I want to do more of this photography, whatever this is, where you take a person and a brand and you just swirl it all together and you just be creative with it for a few hours. That's what I want to do. And so my first shift into commercial work was that fun shoot that we had. That I still think the photos are just incredible.
That was at the hotel in West Hollywood, right?
Actually, it was at your place at the time when you were in LA. That's how long.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Oh my gosh, that was so long ago.
Yeah. You had like a little studio in a little studio area. So we were in there. And then you had we did a jean jacket moment outdoors, like out in front of the garage. Oh my gosh. I'm going to go find those photos. And when I post about this episode, I'm going to post with those photos.
Oh my gosh, please do. I'm like, you captured me when I was in my dark brunette phase after my hair got completely fried from bleaching it. And then we went completely different direction. I seriously, I marked my time by hairstyles and magically you have captured all of them on camera.
Isn't that funny? And
Amazing.
I have all of those archives somewhere. I should send you some of those archives. Which, speaking of, I'm wearing Marrin Costello vintage vintage or archive right now, which one of my favorite necklaces ever. So I've been wearing your jewelry, I mean, since I met you. It always feels to me so like distinct and unique and fun and creative and edgy. And I always get comments on it whenever I'm wearing anything of yours. People are always like, "Oh my God, what jewelry is that?" And I love that. So tell us a little bit about first, let's start general. Tell us about creativity, jewelry industry. That's a big question, but let's just start with like what you love most.
So my relationship with jewelry, as you mentioned, goes back many, 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 many years. And this for me was like well before the internet, well before I really was able to have access to jewelry stores. I grew up in a small town in Northern California. So the closest thing that I had to a bead store was Michael's. And the bead department in Michael's was so small at the time, it was like there was nothing to choose from. So I used to rework vintage pieces and antique pieces that I would find at, garage sales and estate sales and whatnot. And that grew. And with that love of jewelry, so did I. And so did my aesthetic. And so did my materials and the types of projects that I would work on. And, I learned a lot about the industry just from it being a hobby. So it went from a hobby to a glorified hobby, then to a career, and then to a company where now, I employ quite a few folks. So, and, make space for them to have their own respective careers. So jewelry is such a nuanced industry. I mean, it's so fascinating, especially from a production standpoint. We have upward of 300 SKUs that we have mass produced and distributed to all of our retailers and to our brick and mortar store and our e-commerce customers as well, because our direct to consumer customers are fantastic. And any one piece of jewelry, it's amazing to me. There's a necklace, for example, that's, that we sell for $58. And that one piece of jewelry probably had at least 35 hands touch it at any one point in time when it goes to, casting the charm or, soldering the clasp to it or engraving our, monogram onto our clasp to make sure that everything has our stamp on it, because we do get knocked off quite a bit, to plating the piece, to bagging it and then shipping it to our headquarters, to then doing the final finishing, to then packaging it, to adding the tag, to then the post, office, taking it and then distributing it. I mean, the amount of love and energy and care and hands that touch each individual piece is just remarkable. And before I had a product-based business, I didn't realize all of that. I didn't realize all the operations that go into one single piece. Most of the time as customers, we just think, oh, we go online and we buy something and then it arrives. But especially when something is being born of creativity and it is like a byproduct of like someone's soul, which I like to think that my pieces are, there's so much that goes into it. And there can be even, one factory that just specializes in chains, and one that just specializes in casting, and one that just specializes in plating. And any one piece can move from factory to factory at any given point in time. So it's a really involved, detail-oriented industry, but I love it. And it's so fun. It's very, I mean, if you're good in any industry, it's going to get tough, right? Like building a business and sustaining a business is not an easy feat. But I will say that being able to see how people react to the brand, and even you just telling me your story about this piece that you've had for years that you still put on and it makes you feel incredible and powerful and it protects you, like that is the why. The community and the people and the folks that we touch through this brand, like that is what keeps the engine going. And it really just is a vessel to connect with people and create community and make people feel fabulous.
I love that. And it's so true. It really does make people feel fabulous. And I really also feel like it's such a good example. I love that one of your 3 pillars is excellence, because every single piece of jewelry that you put out lives up to a pillar of, yes, beauty and excellence at all times. Like your jewelry lasts for like, I love this piece. I love so much. I've had for what, 6, 7, maybe 8 years, a long time. And I love that part of it. I would also love to know, when you're sitting down to create these pieces, what is your process for like designing them? Does it start in your head and you just have a notebook where you're sketching, or how do you translate what's in your mind to what the design ends up being that you're sending in to get made?
So right now I'm sitting in my office, and everything in front of my desk that you guys can't see, that's our existing collection. We have 4 offices at our headquarters. So this is like my special space, and I have my own door, and I can do podcasts like this, and I can take important meetings. I can meet with buyers, etc. Everything behind my desk, this is my war room. So this is like where everything, like there's papers on the walls, there's Post-its everywhere, there's ideas that I have. I mean, I have photos saved on Pinterest and photos saved on Instagram and TikTok. I have sketches in every one of my notebooks. I have, anytime brilliance strikes, I make sure to write it down, because I believe that we all pull from the same creative hub, just as a spiritual culture, and a spiritual collective. And so if you do not act upon that creativity, it gets sent to someone else, because that creative flow, that creative communication is supposed to happen regardless, right? That's why I think so many people went, oh my gosh, that person invented that. I've been doing that for the longest time, or I should have thought of that. It's kind of like that relatability. So I always make sure to put all of my ideas down. And some ideas come to fruition in a month, and some ideas come to fruition in 5 years. And then, I could be working on a piece, and I'll send, some sketches, and I'll piece together certain things. I have a lot of tools that help me, measure certain parts of the pieces. I have a lot of samples behind me. So I can say, I want a clasp that looks like this, but it's this size, and I want it to be a chain, and I want this link on the chain to be faceted, and I want, the pendant to have these different elements, and then I want it to be this big and this thick. And initially it's a very messy process, but then once you get to actually getting samples for the jewelry, it's a very precise process, because 1 millimeter difference makes all the difference in a piece of jewelry. So it kind of pulls from everywhere. It's a mixture of, luckily I'm sitting on 2 decades, more than 2 decades of data, as far as what customers like, the pieces that people are really drawn to. So we know how to design in categories that we know will do well, just because who doesn't love a hoop, right? Like, how do we reinvent the hoop? Like, the hoop category is not going anywhere, neither are the chains, right? So that's really our zone of genius. But I will say that, now that we've really built out a collection that is fully non-tarnish and hypoallergenic, and you can wear it in the water. I switched all of my materials over to stainless steel when I moved to Tampa. So now everything blanket statement is of, the highest quality of jewelry and fashion jewelry before you get to fine jewelry. And also within that time period, we really made it a priority to create a collection that was whole, that we have our full core collection, that it's not a PC line, PC meaning like it's not, missing any sort of elements. Now that the collection is so solid, I feel like now I can, with all these like wacky designs behind me, now I can come to the table with some funky designs that still are on brand and still are a reflection of me and what the brand has become. But maybe there's a one-off piece that it doesn't necessarily have an entire collection behind it, but it's a Marrin Costello piece because of the certain elements, and it goes with the existing pieces in the collection. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it really is a messy process, and I allow it to be. And, there are certain deadlines that one needs to hit when you're on the editorial calendar, when you're on the fashion calendar. So rather than being like, okay, I have to create a collection by next month, or, for next season, rather than starting from scratch on everything, that's why I allow myself to get weird and be creative throughout the year, so that I can look at what I've already sketched and piece together things that make sense, and then go with the theme of what we want the storytelling element of the brand to be.
Oh, I love that. Can we talk more about the messy part? Because I think the messy part is where a lot of creatives I don't think they get lost, but I think a lot of creatives get scared in the messy part, because it feels overwhelming. It's like, I liken it to like cleaning out your closet. Like, you have your closet, however it already is. you take everything out, you put it on the bed, on the floor, everywhere. It looks like a tornado goes through the room, and it feels overwhelming to then parse through that, take some stuff out, put it back, and then throw and like whatever you're going to get rid of. But that messy middle where it looks like a tornado went through your room, I feel like is the most overwhelming part of it. And it's the same with the creative process, like the tornado part of the creative process that's so messy. I feel like it's so overwhelming to people. Like that's when I feel like a lot of people put the project down. So tell us a little bit about that messy period. Like, how do you mentally stay clear when it feels like there's so much like messy parts to it?
I don't. And that's one thing that I think really has given me the most permission to just be in the process, because creativity doesn't strike 24/7.
Mhm.
Creativity strikes when it wants to strike, right? So if I'm the type of person who's like, I like to get up and do a 7 a.m. workout and do this, this, and this, but I'm up the night before because I can't get all these ideas out of my head and I'm up till 4 a.m., well, then I'm probably not going to go to that 7 a.m. class, right? If we're talking about structure of the week. When it comes to the creative process, when I do feel like I'm in flow and I'm being creative and I'm not being forceful, it's just happening, I allow myself to get weird for as long as I need to be. I also similarly, I love order. I love being organized. I love structure. But also within that, if I'm having a moment and my house is in shambles and I'm living in squalor, but I don't feel like cleaning up, I don't do it just as an experiment to observe myself in that moment, because I know that if I am in a place where I'm not mentally ready to clean up space, if I'm still in like a messy realm, it's going to take me 2 hours to clean up. But if I'm in my orderly frame of reference, it'll take me 20 minutes max. So I more so take myself out of what I'm doing and observe myself in doing it so that I can give myself grace to either be on top of my shit or not. And not to say that I'm not a productive person and that we don't have responsibilities that need to get done to function as a, a proper, person in this video game that we call life. But with the stuff that doesn't have a timestamp, I allow myself to just be in it and just experiment. And I, even last night, I was posting videos on TikTok and I'm like, let's see if this works. Let's see if this works. And if it does, then great. And if it doesn't, then great. I think that allowing yourself to experiment and throw things at the wall and see if they work and also see if they make you feel good. I feel like the best barometer is our own clarity as creatives. If it's something that you feel good about and that resonates with you, that you're proud of, then everything else is just noise.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Give yourself grace. Trial and error. This part is so important that I feel like the key, I feel like the key to really moving past whatever like roadblocks or challenges you're having in business and creativity, whatever, is the trial and error part, especially on TikTok. It's got to be a throw shit at the wall on TikTok. But the trial and error I find so important. And there's like a mental component to that because you have to be set enough in your vision or in yourself to know that when you fail, you're going to keep going anyway, or to know that failure is not some indicator of like how you are as a person. What kind of mindset do you bring to your process in design and trial and error, in the messy part, in the awesome part and the hard days? What kind of mindset are you bringing to all of that?
Gosh, there's so much I can say about this. One, I want to talk about my amazing coach, Gina Patton, who is a mindset coach, and her specialty is in greatness. So I want to go into that. And secondly, I also want to talk about the creative process as far as when you're a creative who's monetizing on your creativity, right? So many people will tell you the narrative of turn your passion into a profession. And to that, I say yes, if that's your path, but also don't feel any pressure to do that. Understand that when you do that, you will rip some of the joy out of the passion because of the responsibility that comes with creating a profession from it. So not all of our passions are meant to be monetized. What I believe is supposed to be monetized is what comes easiest to us. That could also align with your passion if that happens to coincide. Mine happens to coincide, but I also feel like what comes easy to me are the skill sets that I use for my business, not necessarily being a jewelry designer, right? So those are things that I'm still discovering. So if you are a product-based company like mine, I think it's really important to know that you will say you design 50 pieces of jewelry and one of them you love so, so, so much. And that was just for you. And that was just a piece that was from your heart and it means so much to you and it has so much meaning behind it. We'll say the public doesn't like it very much. That's okay. If they like other ones, take that, lean into that, learn from it, because those products and those services that are bringing in the money, that are keeping the lights on, those are the things that can fuel other projects that you're passionate about. So what I have learned in my business is really taking the ego out of my creativity and allowing the audience to decide what they like, because I'm going to like certain things regardless. All the pieces that I design now are going to have my stamp on it regardless. Just because I've designed something that is for me doesn't mean that everyone has to love it, and that's okay.
I love that. And that part is so hard too. I mean, you really do have to divorce yourself from your work in certain ways in order to survive your work, in order to survive what it is to, bring the things that you love and that passion into the world and turn it into an entire profession and an entire business. Like, you do have to step back emotionally in so many ways. Stay emotionally, but also step back emotionally. Like, it's a very interesting balance.
Yeah. And then when it comes to the greatness mindset, Dina teaches on a daily basis, you are either in greatness or you're in smallness. And I definitely feel like there's a time and a place for being in a hard time and going through things emotionally, especially when you're dealing with things like, personal issues or death or really deep things that deserve a point in time. But if you're just hosting a pity party and expecting people to get on it, that's when you need to decide, are you coming from a place of greatness or are you coming from a place of smallness? And you have the choice. You're going to exert the energy anyways. Where are you going to go? And this is coming from someone where, like, I was in the smallest mindset, a couple days ago, last week. I allowed myself to be in it. And then I was like, okay, I've hit my threshold. Like, this is not going to be productive anymore. We process certain things the way that we process them, and then we pick ourselves up. And that's not to say that we brush things under the rug and don't address it. I'm very well versed in therapy. I've been in deep, deep therapy work for about 10 years. And there's a time and a place for everything. So I think for me, it all goes back to learning yourself. The more that you learn yourself and develop a relationship with yourself in a healthy way, the better your relationships are, the better your business is, the better your self-care is. Even if the world's imploding around you, like, if you have a sound relationship with yourself, like, you're winning.
Okay, so this is so interesting because I am really curious what your default switch is just coming into the world. Like, this is something that I've been working on for myself, is that I've only started to understand that my default switch for most of all of my professional life, but for most of my life, has been that my default on what I deserve. My default has been, I think I deserve smallness. I just am hoping for greatness or bigness or seenness, right? I think my default has been, I just deserve smallness, and that's probably just the way it is. And I think one of the things I've been playing with lately is, how do I switch that? Because it does get to be up to me. Like, I can just change my default to, actually, I deserve something bigger. Actually, I deserve something better. Actually, I deserve to go for greatness and things like that. What do you feel like your default switch was? Like, going into that mindset, do you have a specific, like, default foundation that you're, like, moving from, or do you feel like you can change that? Sorry, I'm getting really into this question. This is so interesting.
I love it so much. I love it so much. So 2 questions to ask when you're assessing a situation or a thought. What is the thought? Do you know that for sure? Usually the do you know that for sure is no, in which case you're playing make pretend. So if you're going to play make pretend and throw yourself off the edge, let's play make pretend and think about best case scenario and live in that headspace. I think there's a difference between being delusional on a day-to-day basis and, like, not being a grounded person versus living in the delusion that it really takes to build a brand and to build a business and to be an entrepreneur, because you have to live in a space that you are creating but hasn't been created yet. And I know that might be the antithesis of language that you would use in manifestation, because you're supposed to live in the now and act as things have already happened. But in doing that, the thing might not have already happened yet. So there also is a very healthy relationship with delusion. And that is something for you to figure out and for you to explore. As long as the delusion is not hurting you or others around you, play with it.
I love that. I'm making a note of it. A healthy relationship with delusion is absolutely key.
And I do think that the key to having delusion is also to be patient. I mean, people now will look at the brand and be like, oh my gosh, Marrin, you're crushing it. And I freaking hope so. I've been at this for 20 years. Like I signed my 20s away to focus on my brand and worked every odd end job and lived off top ramen for the better part of a decade. So like having that delusion and that steadfast commitment to yourself and developing your confidence in ways that are untouchable from outside factors. Does a lot of loneliness come from that? Yeah, it is. I mean, if you are a solopreneur and if you're driving the ship and you don't have any other investors or you're doing it yourself, or if you're, you know, an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, like there is loneliness that comes from that. I would be lying to you if I said that it does, that it doesn't. But it really comes back to, for me, confidence in self and confidence in spirit and God and everybody upstairs. So
I love that. I love that. And it's true that there is that loneliness that's present. But it's one thing I love about being creative in the world, running your own business, doing your own thing is when you do find community among that, right? While the loneliness is palpable, you really can deflate it by going out into the community and meeting other people who make you feel excited and seen and heard. And I love that. That's something that you're really amazing at is like in your, like you, I feel like always are like so good at validating other people and like hearing them and being present with them. And I just think that's such like a lovely quality.
Thank you. I think it's like we're allowed to celebrate other people's wins, even though we might not be on the same journey. I think a lot of people have an attachment or an ego to if someone else is succeeding, then I can't, or if they're taking, like other people are taking something from me. No, like everyone's on their own, truly on their own journey. And there is enough success for everyone out there in the world. Like other people's success to me is truly irrelevant. Like that's how delusional I am. I live in a space of like, I'm in my own little bubble. I'm so far up my own behind in a sense where like, I know that the more I take care of myself, no matter what that looks like, whether it's putting on a beautiful outfit or getting my hair done or going to therapy or spending a quiet day on the weekend to like get my work done and actually feel sound about the brand that I'm building, whatever I do to pour into myself will only benefit those around me.
I love that. I love that. Okay. Can we talk about style? Because obviously your jewelry is gorgeous, but your entire style is a full moment. So can you talk a little bit about like how you style yourself, what you think of when you're doing styling? Like I know like when you're styling jewelry or when you're styling your own outfits, what are you looking at there?
So my style has truly had such an evolution. I mean, my mom jokes that when I came out of the womb, I was in like pink frills and tutus and sparkles and I was performing, right? Now I don't know if I have any pink in my wardrobe. I live my life. My color is my neutrals. When I was in high school and in college, I would argue that my style was much more bohemian. I had really, really long hair, like down to my bum. I would continue to grow it to donate it. My hair grows like a chia pet. So it was very bohemian, very floral, beautiful, but a very big departure from how I dress now. And then when I was in the workforce right out of college, I was in fashion and events. So the wardrobe there was black. So you really had to live in the realm of everything is all black every day and have creativity within, you know, the black pieces that you get. I had no budget for clothing at that point in time. So I would thrift, I would only buy things on sale. I would get really creative with what I put on my body and then allowed the jewelry to speak for itself. And then, you know, of course, played with different colors in my hair, different hair colors. And that always changed my wardrobe based on how it affected my coloring because I'm very fair skinned. So if I had platinum hair, my wardrobe would be different than when I was, you know, a dark brunette. And now that I feel like I finally honed in on my style decades later after experimenting and playing with it, I do live my life in neutrals. I love ivories and blacks, and I have a couple pieces of denim, but it's few and far between. I love certain prints. I love metallics. I really play with texture. For me, it's easy because when I travel or when I go into my closet, it's just one less thing to think about. And I know that that's kind of the ethos of what Steve Jobs used to do. Like, that's why he had his uniform, because it was one less thing to take up brain space. I don't have a closet like Steve Jobs, but I've curated it in such a way where I know that, I'm smaller upstairs than I am downstairs. So anything high-waisted is a big plus for me. I don't buy like, mid-rise or low-rise. I just don't even go there. I've really leaned into the things that work for my body type and that work really well from, photography perspective and a content perspective, and allowed myself to be really big within that realm. One of my employees is just like, Marrin, you're a maximalist, and that's just who you are. And when she said that, I was like, yeah, I am a maximalist. I am going to put on 50 pieces of jewelry, and I am going to be the extra one in the room. And that's what makes me feel good. And that, for me, clothing is how we communicate to people who see us. It's, you can only make a first impression once. It also, for me, just fuels my cup so much. It's part of my creative process to put on things that make me feel good, and, obviously do my morning routine and take care of my soul and my spirit as well. But for me to get dressed in the morning and feel good about what I'm wearing and then go into the world, you never know who you're going to meet. You never know who you're going to run into. You never know who you're going to meet. And for me to be presenting myself in a way that is spectacular to my standards, that's what matters. And I'm big at purging, really big at getting rid of anything that either doesn't fit me or things that don't make me feel good. I want to say like maybe a handful of times throughout the year, we'll go through my closet and literally try on every single thing. And if I say, like, if I met either an ex or my future husband, how would I feel wearing this? Like, would I feel like the best version of myself? Or for you, it might be like if you were to meet your dream client, or if you were to run into someone that said that you would never amount to anything, how would you feel if you wore this seeing them? And that is that is my barometer for what I put on my body. So I get comments a lot about, like, Marrin, you're always so well put together, like this, that, and the other. I mean, I'm wearing a comfy set. This is like arguably, like a pajama set, but the way that I've styled it is elevated. And I definitely want to be comfortable. I definitely want to make sure that I am not uncomfortable throughout the day, but I do want to feel fantastic. And I will say that more often than not, when I go out, I will meet people, and also it's the energy that I carry with me because I feel good about how I presented myself. So people can read that energy. I hope that answers your question.
No, I love that. And I want to underline something that you said in there. You said, I'm the most extra in the room. And I want to underline that for people, because that is such a special thing to be. I think a lot, like, I know this is something that I do, but I get really afraid. I want to be seen, and then I get afraid to be seen. So I don't try to be the extra in the room, when I think it's such a spectacular thing to come in with such a presence of like, I am so happy to be the most extra person in this room. And it's such a special, I think it's such a special thing. And I think it's a really like sparkly thing. Do you carry, like, when you are about to walk into the room and like, I'm going to be the most extra person in this room, do you like carry with you, like, do you set yourself into a presence or into like an energy that carries that with you?
It's a great question. When I say the most extra in the room, I mean that not everyone is going to come in with 50 pieces of jewelry and a fur coat and a red lip, right? When I say that, I don't mean that I'm like behaving in a way that's obnoxious or like not me and not authentic. I could very well not say anything, but never have I once regretted being overdressed for an occasion. I've only thought about after the fact of an event being like, or any outing being like, I could have amped it up a little bit. Like, I know that I would have felt better about myself if I don't know, put on a couple more rings, whatever the case may be. That's a silly example, but I think if I were to center myself, and I think this is just like part of my spiritual practice that I don't even really think about, it's really about centering myself, like connecting myself to white light. We're getting really woo-woo here.
Love
and
it.
knowing that I am where I am for a reason, and I'm walking into this room for a reason. And it's an experiment of like, who am I going to meet? Who am I going to make smile today? Who am I going to learn about? It's not when I walk into a room, it's not about, hi, my name's Marrin and I have a jewelry brand. Like, I don't even say that to people. I ask a lot of questions. My intention is to learn people and develop relationships. And it is really the more human aspect of what one would consider networking. Because networking for me is very much like you're posturing yourself as something for other people to buy. And where I sit is, I don't want you to like me if it's something that you're going to force yourself to do. I don't want you to buy my jewelry if it's not for you. I just want you to feel good in our interaction and go away with it knowing that someone was there to, be interested in you and have a lovely conversation and make you smile. And sometimes it's a quick pleasantry, and sometimes it's a 40-minute conversation because you just get so into it with someone. So it really is just gamifying those types of events, especially if you're an introvert, especially if you were someone who maybe struggles with being seen or, those types of things. I think I love people. But I'm only able to love other people as much as I love myself.
Let's underline that too. That's important. Yeah. I love that. Okay, so now I want to talk about, you recently expanded into opening the doors of the Marrin Costello store that you can walk into and shop around, and I'm dying to come in and just shop in person. I think that's so exciting. So tell us about expanding into an actual, like your own store.
So I think it's really important for folks to, have goals and to have things that they want to achieve, and also be open to whatever the world wants you to experience, because we plan and then God laughs and then he's like, actually, this is what I had planned for you. And I resisted having a brick and mortar for a very, very, very long time. It's not something that I thought that I wanted to do. My passion really is in developing product and developing brand, and obviously relationships as a byproduct. But we're mostly a wholesale company. And I think that a lot of people don't know that because we do have such a strong online presence. Our direct to consumer and retail business is really fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but we do crazy volume in wholesale. So, come time to be presented with an opportunity to open a store, just months before that, when one of my sweet friends asked me, hey, would you ever consider having a store? I thought, maybe in like 5 or 10 years. Like, I don't know, maybe not. We'll see. Like, if that's what God wants me to do, then great. And as fate would have it, this opportunity came across my desk over the summer. And then when I got back from traveling for work over the summer and the fall, we had a 2-week sprint to get access to the store, and then a 2-week sprint to open it. So we really had 2 weeks to do a full build out, move out all the things from the previous tenant, develop our aesthetic, get all the signage printed and the building painted inside and out. I mean, it was a huge to do for 2 weeks. And now it's, such a wonderful element and an extension of the brand. But truthfully, to me, that was a God thing. That was a divine moment. I listened to the instructions, and I followed the steps, and I just did what I needed to do to make it happen, because I do believe in excellence. So if we do commit to something, it's going to be done well. And that's from how we, correspond with people on email, to what our designs are, to our experience with our customers, to, how we in some way erected a full-blown flagship store in 2 weeks. So it's been a really fantastic process. I will say that the store did come with 5 amazing women, in that there was a previous boutique that was at that store, at that particular location, for about 15 years. And so many of the women who worked at the stores were still part of it, and they still needed jobs after there was, the turnover. And so I said, well, would you guys want to come on with me? Because they already knew the product. Our product was already sold in that boutique. It was their number 1 seller for about 2 years. So it was another organic evolution of the brand that it just made sense. Like, all the stars aligned, where I thought, even if I tried to resist this, I wouldn't be able to do it. Like,
That's
this is
amazing.
so for me that I leaned into it, and then it happened. So the amazing women who run the store, I mean, they run the show. They're spectacular. They know that property more than anyone. They know our product so well because they've been selling it and wearing it for so long. So it really was a natural progression of the brand. And we'll see where retail takes us. It's pretty wild to think that we have a store now.
I love that. Okay, wait, I want to dig into that a little bit because how do you know when you're in a moment that is just like guided? Like it's for you, like you just know that this is a moment you're being spoken to. How do you know the difference between a moment like that versus maybe a linear thought process of, but this is the plan? How do I know I should follow this when I've planned this over here?
It's a great question. I think I know that as one develops relationship with self, you develop relationship with God. And so my God is a God of clarity, not of confusion. So that's my barometer for everything. Like, if I'm confused on a person, a relationship, a conversation, a design, anything, I know it's not fully baked. Either it's bad news bears and I have to, exit stage left and press the eject button, or I need to let it sit a little bit more. And so I'm very, very, very blessed to have an incredible community that I've fostered of, therapists and advisors and just beautiful humans that I run things by. So I did, run this this opportunity by other people, not to hold their opinion over mine, but just to make sure I wasn't missing any white space of like, I don't know, Mayor, maybe you shouldn't do this because of whatever, like some bit, the boogeyman. But it was green lights across the board, because I will say, to go from 4 employees to 14 and 4 offices to 4 offices and a flagship in 2 weeks and quadrupling payroll in 2 weeks is a big jump.
Yeah.
So I knew that, like, either I'm being tested and this is, I never, again, me living in the delusion and also always committing to my own excellence, I never think that something is too big for me to tackle. It's always, how am I going to figure it out? If this is for me, how am I going to figure it out? I think the great thing about having a jewelry business or a product-based business, that even if the product that you're selling or the service that you're selling hasn't been done before, selling a product or a service and building a company has been done before. So it's not like you're embarking on this like uncharted territory that is not achievable. Like, you can do hard things. Like, it's been proven, like, businesses have failed, but they've also really thrived, right? So I think for me, it's just life hacking. Cool. Or how are we going to do this? But I will say, like, I would be dishonest if I didn't say that a lot of my decisions weren't intuitively guided.
I love that. I love that, because I deeply believe that we are our own, like, deepest knowing, right? It comes from us first. And this is something that I see I see a lot of range of creatives. Some creatives are like me, in that, like, I rarely ever ask anybody else for advice, which is not, I definitely am not saying that's the way to do it. That is not necessarily ideal. I maybe rely on myself a little too much. But then I also see creatives who ask every single other person except themselves what they want, right? And there's such a range there. How do you form your kind of like trusted advisors, like the people that you are looking for green flags from, or that you're going to in those moments and saying, okay, so can we talk about this? I've got this opportunity XYZ. How do you decide who is going to be like on your advisory panel, quote unquote, like, so to speak?
Totally. I mean, it's like dating, right? Like, finding a therapist, you have to date them. Finding your tribe, finding your friends, you have to, quote unquote, date a lot of people to figure out, like, if someone resonates with you. When you were talking about decision making, if I think that something is a good idea, if I'm like, wow, this is new and this is cool and this is exciting, I let it bake for as long as it needs to, until I have my clarity. And I don't ask everyone's permission. For all intents and purposes, like, I ask no one's permission for a lot of things, for most things. If it's a big thing, like, hey, this is going to like completely transform your business, I think it's appropriate to ask like some business people, like, I know I'm crazy, but am I crazy? You know,
Yeah.
people that you trust, and finding those people, I think that they find you.
Ooh.
I think they find you when you're ready for that next level of, advisory and coaching. I mean, my newest advisor, I just met at a networking event, and she was speaking to me, and I just thought, oh my gosh, this woman is such a wealth of knowledge. And I said, you know, I feel like this is where, and I don't really tell people, I'm like, this is where I'm at in my business. These are my pain points. Is this something that resonates with you? And she goes, yep, you are a former version of me. I'm going to help you.
Wow.
So I think that not everyone is deserving of all of your stuff. And I think this might have been a Sarah Blakely quote, but when you tell people your ideas too soon, you subject your ideas to other people's opinion, and not everyone is deserving of all the things that you are working on, of all of your decisions. This is a very curated way to go about, you know, making decisions, especially in business. I don't ask a lot of people for things, I tell them. And I know that has come from telling people things in the past and maybe holding myself back because their advice was to be smaller, because their job was to protect me, or, you know, people would help me, people that I would put a lot of faith into would make decisions that I thought were irresponsible. So you don't know these things unless you experiment. And you know more about yourself and about business with experience. So it's either winning or lessons.
I love that. I love that. Okay, I have one more question for you. And I feel like this is something that I've started asking my podcast guests, because this is one of my favorite questions to ask anybody. I ask my family this over holidays, and I always feel like I learn something new about my family. And so I started asking this on the podcast. So have you ever seen the movie Sliding Doors, like from 1998 with Gwyneth Paltrow? It's a great movie. I'm going to give a quick recap of it. So it's in 1998, Gwyneth Paltrow, when she was in her like short hair era. And she did this movie where she's at work and she leaves work early and goes home and gets on the train and finds her boyfriend cheating on her. And then the movie plays out what happens in that, after that, you know, devastating moment. And then it reverses and it gets to a moment where instead of catching the train at the last second, she misses it by 1 second and doesn't make it home to find her boyfriend cheating on her. And then the movie plays out that world too, right? So we see side by side the difference to just like 1 second, one small like sliding door in your life can make in such a major way, like that huge butterfly effect. So one of my favorite questions to ask is, what has been a sliding doors moment in your life? One small thing that had a huge ripple effect that just changed your whole life.
Man, so many. I mean, moving to Tampa was a big one.
Yeah.
That was another idea that popped into my head, where I just knew that my chapter in LA was over. And then I made pretend of, well, where am I moving? Am I moving here? Or am I moving there? And then it really was developing relationship. Well, what is my reaction to those questions? That will also help guide you so much. But moving the brand here, I mean, it's just, the doors have just flung over.
That's
It's
amazing.
like every step is through another sliding door. So I think back to our previous question of, well, who did you tell about these things? I only told a very select people. You know who your people are, right? You know, if someone's like doesn't have your best interest at heart. I told like my people, my core, Chelsea being one of them, about this idea, and just saying I'm very much being called to Tampa. And so many people were like, go, do it. And then there were people that I told I was going to do that. But again, there's only a knowing that you have, because it really was out of left field. I mean, I was like, I loved LA so much. And like, I swore I was going to be there for the rest of my life. So for me to be called and to really listen to that idea and really double down on that and trust and know that it was for a reason, that has been I mean, every sliding door has been a byproduct of that.
Amazing. Oh, that's so beautiful. So tell us what you have, what's going on, where can people find you? What do you have coming up?
Oh my gosh, we have so many incredible collections and events coming up. If you guys are in the Tampa area, make sure to get on our mailing list so that we can give you information on events. If you're not in the Tampa area, we ship worldwide. You can experience the brand. Our packaging is beautiful. Our experience is fantastic. We're also in a ton of stores across the states and internationally, so you can experience some of our pieces and our retail partners. You can find me at marrincostello.com, and that will link you to my consulting website, my radio podcast, and also the jewelry brand. If you just are interested in jewelry, which I don't blame you, marrincostellojewelry.com, and all of our social media platforms are exactly the same: Marrin Costello, Marrin Costello Jewelry, and Marrin Costello Radio. So those three names across all platforms will get you, they'll get you where you need to go.
I love it. Oh, thank you so much for joining us today. This was such an incredible conversation.
I love you so much. Thank you for having me.
You too. Thank you.